Hello, welcome to YellowCoversExplained. In today's video, we'll be looking at your turn, how to take it, and some game interactions that you may run into. So let's start. What exactly does it take to play a game of Magic the Gathering Commander? Well, cards mostly. You will need a deck of 99 cards. Your deck in Magic is referred to as your library. It's a library of spells for battling as a wizard. So we'll put that right there. You'll also need a commander card, and he can sit right next to our deck. Also, we'll need a few dice, generally for keeping track of things. Finally, but not least important, you'll need some way to track your life totals. A piece of paper and a pencil is fine. I have this ledger and pen here from Dragon Shield. This is quite nice. You can also use a phone app to track your life totals, and that's very common in Commander. Carbon is one of the most popular ones you can use. Now that we know what we need, and we have our cards right here, we'll take our deck of 99 cards, moving the commander off to the side, and we're going to shuffle it. We don't want our commander mixed in, he stands apart. That's why I have mine dressed in orange, and the rest of my deck dressed in blue. Now, not everyone cares about card value in Magic the Gathering, but the general rule is we never rift shuffle. That's what that looks like. That type of shuffling can damage the cards and even end up completely ruining one. Shuffle like this instead. This is called a top-down or a side shuffle, where you slide the cards into each other over and over on the side, slowly mixing them up. You can do this as many times as you like. There's no such thing as too much shuffling. Once you're done, you present your deck or your library to the opponent, then they get to cut it. That means they choose anywhere in the deck, take half of it, and then put the other half on top. Always do this if your opponent has just finished shuffling. Most people you play with won't cheat, but it's a good way to deter it. Now that our deck is shuffled, we can place it anywhere we'd like in our play space. I prefer to put things in the top right corner, so I'll put my deck up here. Now, an important thing to note is, I have this very nice playmat. This was given to me as a gift, and I think it looks wonderful. But you don't need a playmat or even card sleeves to play Magic. Don't think you need to get out and get anything fancy, you just need some cards and some dice. And remember, have fun. Now finally, we'll get to decide who goes first. We'll decide by rolling this d20. I got a 12. Some people do this differently. There are all sorts of ways. Some people roll 1d6. Some people roll 2d6. But generally speaking, you want the highest number on the dice if you want to start the game. If you ever end up getting a tie on your dice, let's say I rolled a 5 and the straw man across me rolled a 5, both of us just keep rolling our dice until one gets a higher number than the other. In Commander, each player starts the game with 40 life. Make sure to write this down somewhere or keep track of it. There's many ways to lose in Magic, but the most common one is running out of life. As soon as your life points reach 0, you're out of the game. Now that we know who goes first, the straw man I'm playing against rolled low, let's get started. I will draw my 7 cards to start the game. You always start the game by drawing 7 cards. And we'll look at them together. So, I'll separate them out how I normally do, and we'll take a look at them. I normally separate my lands to the left side of my hand. You don't have to, but it just helps me keep things organized. So I see that we've gotten 3 cards that say land, cards that say creature, and 2 other cards. I like these cards. Specifically, 3 lands is enough for me. And here's why. The important part of your first hand is having land cards in it. As you can see, I have 3 land cards right here. That's a good amount to start with, since I know the average cost of the spells in my deck is 3. That means I'll be able to play most of them without a problem. These 2 creature cards are good to keep as well. They have a cost I'll be able to pay for in the near future, as this werewolf costs 2 green pips and this opaline unicorn costs 3 of any color, and that aligns with my lands. The other spells I have are nice, but not as important to my decision to keep my hand. These will both help me get even more mana for my bigger turns and scarier spells. So that last draw was really nice, and I wanted to keep it. But what if you look at your starting hand and decide it's just not very good? Thankfully, you're not stuck with it. This is what's called a mulligan. You are allowed one free mulligan in each game of Commander that you play. This means you'll shuffle up your old 7 cards and you'll draw a new set of 7. The next time you do it, however, you do have to take a penalty of losing 1 card. You only draw back up to 6 cards. And the next time you do that, you'll draw down only 5 cards. Mulliganing can be important, and it's good to make sure that you have lands. Make sure you don't mulligan too far down and run out of cards. Now, before we get back to my hand, we have something else to explain. How Magic plays. Magic's gameplay loop revolves around the different phases, as we can see here. At the start of your turn, you'll go through 3 phases. They're called the untap step, upkeep, and draw. The untap step is where you set all your lands, artifacts, and creatures that were tapped down and used back upright, so that they can be used again. The upkeep step is more specific. This card, for example, called Land Tax. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, or reveal them and put them into your hand. Then you shuffle. So if you're not drawing the land cards you need, during your upkeep, it helps you get some. Draw step is the most self-explanatory. All you do is you'll take 1 card from the top of your library, and you'll put it into your hand. We'll move back to the hand that I drew before, and go to the start of my turn. As it's my first turn, I have nothing to untap, and no cards that say upkeep. So, I'll move to my draw step, and draw my card for turn. So that goes into my hand, and you have a maximum hand size of 7 cards, but only at the end of your turn. So even though I have a total of 8 cards right now, I don't have to discard anything, because it's not the end of my turn. I'll actually get into playing my turn now, and go into my first main phase. That just means it's currently my turn, and I can play any cards that I can afford the mana cost for. So, I'll make the only play I can by putting a land card down onto the battlefield. I don't have anything else that I can do because I can't pay for the mana costs on any of my other spells, so I'll let the strawmen know I'm ready to pass the turn. Well, now it's back to me. Thankfully, the scarecrows I invited play quick magic. We're gonna go through our phases here again. I still have nothing to untap, and I still have no cards that say upkeep, so I'll go to draw my card. Got another creature. This one is a Thorn Elemental. He says he costs 7 total mana. I don't have enough mana to play that yet, but have cards that'll help me get there in this near future. Now, we're back to the first main phase, so we can play any cards that we can pay the mana cost for and our 1 land for turn. I think I'll start by putting this forest card into play. Now that we have 2 available green mana, there's a couple things we can do. We can currently play either of these cards. One gives us another land, which is very helpful, and the other is a creature that has a lot of words, but for right now, we'll focus on the fact that it has 3 power and 3 toughness. Now, it would be up to you to decide what's more important, but I'd like to have another land. So I'll tap both my forest cards, and I'll cast my Rampant Growth. If the spell succeeds, I'll put it into my graveyard, and then search my library for a basic land card. But what does that mean? It means I can search through my deck for a land card, like this, or this, or even this one. They can only add 1 type of mana, and they have no fancy effects. Look, I found one. It's a mountain. So, we'll do what the card says, and we'll place it onto the battlefield tapped. And then, we'll go to shuffle our library. After a significant amount of shuffling, we'll put our library back into place, and we'll keep going. Now, unfortunately, this mountain does enter the battlefield tapped, which means I won't be able to use it this turn. So, I have nothing else left to do. I'll again let the other players know that I'm ready to pass my turn. Alright, it's finally back to me again. We'll go through the steps of untapping all my cards that were turned sideways, which are my land cards for now. Then, we'll go to the second part. We'll go to the upkeep. Still don't have any cards that say upkeep. So, we'll draw our card for turn. Ooh, perfect. Temple of the False Gods is a non-basic land. It reads, tap this land, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this ability only if you control 5 or more lands. It adds colorless mana and has other effects, so we know it's not basic. That'll go to my hand. We only have 3 lands currently, and this one says we need 5, so we can't use it yet. Instead, we'll play our other mountain card from our hand. One of my opponents has played a creature. It's a Pure Steel Paladin. And another has played a Steeple Creeper. So I should probably get out a creature as soon as I can. Thankfully, I can do that. This Werewolf Pack Leader says it only costs 2 green mana to play, and I have 2 forest cards that are untapped. So, I'll tap both of my forest cards, and I will cast my Werewolf Pack Leader. Now, my Werewolf Pack Leader is sick from being freshly summoned. They can't attack this turn, but they can block for me if they need to. They'll be able to attack next turn. We also do have 2 mana left open, and we could play the Lightning Bolt card we got earlier, but we're not going to do that yet because it's an instant card. We can do that on someone else's turn. So, we'll pass our turn yet again. One of my opponents has decided to attack me. They're attacking me with their Pure Steel Paladin that we saw earlier. It has 2 power and 2 toughness, and it's a creature. I can now choose whether I'd like to block or if I'd like to lose 2 life. Or I can use my Lightning Bolt. I will block the Pure Steel Paladin with my Werewolf since it has 1 more power and 1 more toughness. My Werewolf kills the opponent's creature and lives with 1 health. At the end of my opponent's turn, my Werewolf will heal back to full health. Oh, that's not good. Another straw man has decided to attack me. This is the one that had the Steeple Creeper. But now we're in danger. The Steeple Creeper has more power than my Werewolf has toughness. If you'll remember our instant card from earlier, Lightning Bolt says that it could target a creature to deal damage. It specifically says Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player. With that, Steeple Creeper is a creature, so I'll target him to do 3 damage too, paying 1 red mana for the spell's cost. When that happens, if the spell goes through, which in this case it will, my spell will go to the graveyard because it's been played, and Steeple Creeper will die because he took 3 damage, and then no more damage happens on that turn. Finally back to me. We survived some incoming attacks, and now we'll be able to hit back. So, let's untap our lands. I still don't have any cards that say upkeep, maybe someday, but instead, let's move to our draw step. Ooh, we drew Fight Rigging. Fight Rigging is an enchantment with a lot of text, but we'll read that in just a moment. Instead, we'll have it go to my hand for now. Now, our first play after we get to our main phase is to put down Temple of the False Gods. It says if we have 5 or more total lands, it'll add 2 colorless mana, and currently, counting itself, which it does, we have 5 lands. So that's nice. Now, let's figure out what Fight Rigging does. We'll tap our Temple of the False Gods for 2 colorless mana, and our Forest for a green mana to pay for Fight Rigging, and we'll cast it. Fight Rigging is an enchantment with a load of text, so bear with me. Hide away 5. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, look the top 5 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, then put the rest in the bottom in a random order. And then, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then, if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, You may play the exiled card without paying the mana cost. That's a lot of words. What does exile mean? To exile something in Magic means to remove it from the game. More commonly, people just flip things face down to show that it's no longer in play. So let's do what the card says and take a peek at the top 5 cards of our library. For ease, I've already drawn them. This is what they are. We have 3 land cards and 2 creatures. Fight Rigging says we'll eventually get to play one without paying its mana cost, so I don't think it's worth it to get a land, so I'll take those out. Now it's between one of these 2 creatures. Satyr Hedonist says he's a satyr creature, and it has 2 power and 1 toughness. Yidaro is a dinosaur turtle that says it has 8 power and 8 toughness. I'll choose Yidaro, and place him face down under Fight Rigging to show that he's been exiled. I'm the only one that gets to see the exiled card this way, so my opponents aren't sure what I just put under Fight Rigging. The final step of Fight Rigging says take the other 4 cards, shuffle them up, and place them on the bottom of my library. Which simply means do something like this, and then slide them to the bottom of your deck. So after all that, we still have 3 mana available. I'll tap my 2 mountains, and my forest card, for this Opaline Unicorn. I've had this in my hand since the beginning, and it can act like a land to give me 1 mana of any color I need. It's also a creature with 1 power and 2 toughness. Now, we finally get to attack. We'll move out of our first main phase and into combat. In the combat phase, you can't play permanent or sorcery spells, but instants are fair game. We have what's called a trigger in Magic now that we've moved to our combat phase. Fight Rigging says, at the beginning of combat, on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. We've read the other text before, and it won't happen right now, so we'll just figure out what a +1/+1 counter is. +1/+1 counter is a permanent buff that goes on your creature. This is normally represented by a dice with a number on it. That tells you how many +1/+1 counters it has on it and how strong it is. Now that we know that, I'll target my werewolf pack leader to get the +1/+1 from Fight Rigging, and I'll put a dice on it. I have to choose who I want to attack now. 2 of my opponents have no creatures, and 1 has this 1 power and 1 toughness rat creature. Can I attack this rat creature with my werewolf? Sadly, no. You can only attack opponents in Magic. They get to decide if they block or not, but thankfully, you get that same advantage. I think I will attack my opponent with the rat creature. I'll move from my battle step to my declare attacker step, and tap down my werewolf pack leader. This shows it is attacked and can't block for me until my next turn. After I declared my attackers, we move into declare defender step. This is where your opponent, in this case, Mr. Rat having Strawman, gets to decide if they want to use a creature to block, or if they'll take damage to their life total. The Strawman has decided to block with the rat creature, and even though my werewolf has 2 more power than the rat's toughness, I don't do any damage to my opponent. That requires the keyword trample. We'll talk about that another time. So, now that he's decided to block and I've decided to attack, we resolve the damage. The rat takes 3 damage and only has 1 health, so he dies, and my werewolf takes 1 damage but has 3 health, so he lives. So the rat will go away. Now, my werewolf will stay tapped down, and we move on to the second main phase. In your second main phase, you can play any type of card, same as in your first main phase. You're still limited to only playing 1 land per turn, and I don't have anything to play in my second main phase, so I think I'll just pass again. We could keep going for a very long time. Magic is fun and complex, but at its base it's not too complicated. I hope this helped you learn something new today about Magic, and have a great day.